I'd like to call the meeting to order. Those that care to, please stand for an opening prayer and the pledge to the flag. Brenda, if you would, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for the day that you've given us and the beautiful weather that we've been able to enjoy today. Lord, thank you that we're able to come tonight and gather together and hear the business for the city. Lord, I just thank you so much for the council and for the city here. Bless us during the meeting tonight and give us a safe journey home. In his name I pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Start off with the mayor's announcement. There is a retirement celebration for Sharon Duncan. After 11 years of service, she's retiring, so please join us in her honor on May 17th at 3 p.m. at the Public Police Department Training Room. We're going to gather and pay our respect and gratitude for her hard work and contribution to the police department. Be cake and cookies and barbecue? Okay. And also, we have with us tonight Kelly Kearns, new director of the Chamber of Commerce. Would you like to step up and introduce yourself?
Okay. My first meeting to come to. For those of you that might recognize me, I used to work for the American Red Cross, so I ran around trying to gather everybody's blood before I did this. So if you recognize me, that's why. I literally begged for blood. So that's where I came from. I've lived in Republic since 2000. We built a house in Valley Park Estates. I love Republic, and so this is a perfect job for me. I met Jim at the first meeting where they announced, and he had some interesting topics that went along with some of the things that I had put in my interview process that I would like to do for Republic. And one of them was improving the signage into Republic. So that's going to be one of the first initiatives. I'm planning on doing a fundraiser and try to help at least in the initial the signs coming into Republic, and see if we can't raise enough funds to get us some pretty good signs. So have a lot of ideas. I started a Facebook today, and so if any of you are on Facebook, go and like the page. I'm going to put a lot of things. Plan on doing a lot of promotion. I have a PR background, worked with marketing and promotion on a divisional level for American Red Cross. I have a lot of ideas to bring to hopefully get Republic a little bit better on the map than it is right now. So I have a lot of ideas to bring people to Republic as well for events and things like that too. So I appreciate anybody's support, comments, anything. You know where to reach me, and I don't have any cards to hand out to you yet. So.
All right, well, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Kelly? Now's your time.
Is there contact info on the chamber site then?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I haven't updated. I'm meeting with the web designer on Thursday to get everything updated on the web. And we should have everything updated pretty soon. I'm also working on the logo. I talked to Jim about it earlier, to try to get it more in line with the city as far as the fonts and the colors. And I'll be working on that this week as well. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks I'll have everything updated, ready to go. So.
Very good.
We put posted. Go ahead. I was going to say we put some signage up at Clinkenberry Corner.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else for Kelly while she's up here?
We don't need that signage.
Don't need it. Well, we're all looking forward to working with you, Kelly, and welcome aboard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to open up now for a public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak? Pardon me? Do we have a public hearing? I'm sorry. We don't have public hearings. Let me mark that out. I'd like to open up to citizen participation. Anybody wishing to speak about anything not on the agenda, please step forward and give us your best 3 minutes. And sign in, please.
I'm Carolyn Metters, and I think this lady is going to do what I was going to suggest, because when we put the, signs out several years ago, the east one was the one that went up first, and we didn't have the money to put the west one, and my husband and I, footed the bill for that sign, and it's damaged, and I was gonna say, if you're not gonna repair it, I'd like to take it down. So that's just you know, it looks really tacky. It's two-thirds of it's there, one-third's gone.
Yes.
So, anyway, that's all I have to say.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, do you have something to add?
Just so people are all on the same page, the two signs that both Kelly and Ms. Metter are referring to are the sign on Route 60, which would be west, near the old Burger King building out in that direction coming into town. And then further east, we would have the same type of a sign back east coming into Republic. Those are the two signs that are non-MoDOT regulated. They're on private property, so those would be the ones I believe Kelly was referring to, and Mrs. Metters about trying to either take those down because they are getting unsightly, or trying to come up with that fundraiser so we can try to renovate those signs and get them looking good again and present a nice entranceway into the city.
So there will be more to come on this.
More to come.
All right, stay tuned. Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak on citizen participation? Seeing none, citizen participation is closed. Like a motion and second on the consent agenda?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. On to the financial report. Welcome, Laura Guy-Wright.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
And what you have in front of you is kind of results after audit adjustments were made. Marshall has been here, did the audit in April. Audit adjustments were, of course, were done before he came, and so he's in the process of still, even though he's not here anymore, he's back at his office, he's still kind of looking things over and getting ready to do the financial reports. So when you look at the unrestricted cash balances, this is what, after the adjustments were made, is where the cash is right now. And as you thumb through the revenue expense report, adjustments were made to any revenue that should have been put back into 2012, and the same thing with expenses that were put back into 2012. So probably was adjusted somewhat from the last time you saw a financial report, which was in March. And so, but the good news is that the year-to-date, this does represent just the year-to-date for 2013. The general fund has a slight net loss for the year-to-date. I'm talking $43,000, which isn't bad at this point for 4 months. The other funds have positive gains. Their revenues exceed their expenses for the first 4 months. Any questions?
Any questions for Laura?
I have one. Is there, when we get the audit results, is there like an executive summary or something that we'll get, or?
Well, what Marshall will do will come and present it to the council, and, yes, and probably do an overall, what his thoughts were. And so, and hoping in June, because we're trying to go out for an award on the financial report. So we have to have it all done by the end of June. So.
Thanks, man.
You get award for how much it weighs?
Yeah. Well, thing is about having an award, the financial report will grow,
Yeah.
probably double in size, so.
I was telling our attorney that you can tell Marshall's been here.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions for Laura while she's here? There is a lot of information to look at here. Please take this home and look at it. If you do have any questions, please contact Laura.
Sounds good. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We have to approve that?
Okay, I need a motion to approve the financial report, please.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. On to reports from staff. Mr. Christie, do you have anything for us?
Nothing more?
Nothing? Ron?
Boring.
Man. Jared, it's up to you. Future community events.
Good evening. Future community events, May 16th, toddler tumbling, 5:30 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. Pre-registration is required. That's held at the Republic Activities Building. May 17th, 24th, and 31st is toddler story time, 10:30 a.m. It's held at the Republic Community Center, and no registration is necessary. That's also a free event. May 20th is toddler open gym, 10 a.m., held at the Republic Activities Building. May 25th is Saturday, a week from this Saturday, opening of the Republic Aquatic Center, always an exciting time. May 27th, Memorial Day, the Monday, city offices will be closed. Just an early heads up on a couple of our bigger events throughout the year. June 28th is the City of Republic's 17th Annual Have a Blast celebration. It's held at J.R. Martin Park. That event is from 6 to 10:30 p.m. And on July 26th, Republic Night at the Springfield Cardinals is held at 7 o'clock, and that's at Hammons Field.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Board commission and committee schedule. Board of Adjustments meets June 6th. Capital Improvement Committee, May 22nd. City Council is May 28th, June 3rd, and June 10th. There is a workshop on June 3rd. That is the
Unified Development.
Unified, okay. And Planning and Zoning Commission, May 20th.
If you don't mind, one change on the Capital Improvements Committee. The meeting for the 22nd had been canceled, and they'll meet next in June.
Okay.
Where's the workshop?
Fire Station, number 1, 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Very good, thank you. On to old business, I need a motion and a second for the second read of bill number 13-20.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental cooperative agreement with Greene County for asphalt overlay services.
Any motion and second for the final passage of bill number 13-20.
Motion?
Second.
And the overview is by, who got the overview?
David does.
David. I'm looking here. Thank you, David. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. This is the 10th year that we'll utilize an IGA with Greene County for our asphalt overlay services. Short summary, prices this year are really almost very close to the previous year. There's a little bit of apples and oranges in a direct comparison because there is a break line at a certain tonnage that went from 600 to 700 tons this year. So on the face of it, the smaller jobs went up a little over 1%. The bigger jobs, unit price went down a little over 2%. I do want to point out that based on the first reading, staff has revised this agenda item to remove or to not alter the proposed street work. In other words, we would conduct the reconstruction and surface overlays that the council approved in the 2013 budget, and any additions to that would be brought forth to the city council on a separate agenda item. The one roadway we had mentioned was the bid prices that came in will be about $30,000 to the good if nothing else occurs with that line item. The project we had wanted to try to squeeze in and may still pursue would be reconstruction of Magnolia between Elm Street and Rosewood. And I do want to point out to the council, if that is done, when that is done separately, we have to re-rent equipment. That runs us about $7,000 when we do our road work. So Magnolia would estimate that cost to come in about $34,000 if we want to accomplish that in the future.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for David? No one has anything for David?
What?
Yes, sir. Ms. Gary?
On
Magnolia, if we did it now, it would just run $29,000. But if we waited, it'd run, $34,000.
That's correct. The equipment, we typically rent, a road reclaimer, big grinder, and then a rubber tire loader. Minimum term on those is 1 week, and, the reclamator runs, I think, about $5,000 a week. The loader, about $2,500. So we do that in bulk, and you can spread that cost around. If we come back and have to do that, have to return equipment, then we'd incur those expenses again.
Wouldn't it be better to go ahead and do it now?
Would be more economical, yes, sir.
And the reason that I had asked for that to be changed last week is that $30,000 in savings, you know, may need to be used on dogwood depending on what we decide to do there. So that's why I had asked for that to be pulled last week. I assume that's why you pulled that off of there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, that's just throwing it out to council. That's why I did that, is that every piece of savings that we have available to us, if we hadn't scheduled that other thing to be done this year anyway, and we may incur some additional cost in fixing dogwood depending on what council determines. So I think it'd be wise to wait and see if we need that money to do something different.
Do you have? Mr. Wilson? Do you have any idea of your plans for dogwood yet?
We do not. It's scheduled, I believe, to be an agenda item on the 28th of this month. And there's a pretty broad range of what expenses might be there.
But as far as resurfacing though, that's gonna continue on to the dogwood, correct?
It will, it
Okay.
will. We'll do dogwood as part of this. We just won't put the surface course on dogwood until we know that things are complete out there on the stormwater project.
Yes,
Would
Mr.
the
Sears?
Magnolia project, if we didn't do it this year, just be delayed 1 year? When would it come
Yes,
up again?
yes. This is actually brought in from what we have on our 2014 schedule. So just accomplishing what we set out keeps us on point. The additional work gets us into the upcoming year.
Mr. Clinkenberg?
Well, you look at it as saying, well, it's gonna cost us $5,000 or $7,000 or whatever more. The thing is, if we do this next year and we bid this with next year's things, there won't be an additional cost. So if we don't use this money on additional things, either on dogwood or elsewhere, then that's just $30,000 that you save in your budget that might help the city in other places or that type of thing, correct?
Correct. If it's
So
not
if it's
expended, it'll roll over.
So if it's done next year on this, I mean, it's not like, well, we'll decide to do this, 2 months from now and it's gonna cost us a lot more to do it. We can put this on the schedule when it was intended, when it was originally intended next year. And if it's bid with other things next year, it'll get the bulk price. Correct?
Yes.
So we don't have to lose the $5,000 extra to do this.
Yeah, wouldn't necessarily be losing anything. It's just trying to maximize the amount of road work that we would need to do with the equipment that we would rent. So over that 2-week period, we can get X number of streets prepared for surfacing, and that's something that we do with our staff with rented equipment. So we would be able to get this in this year, but we would also be able to fit it into next year's cost with the same equipment rentals for next year. It's just an extra project we could have fit in this year if need be.
But don't you think it's smart that if we come in at $30,000 under budget, that we may need that money elsewhere? I mean,
Yeah, as David
especially with
mentioned.
dogwood on the agenda.
Yeah, as David mentioned, this was a project, fortunately enough, we were able to move forward a year, and it's,
We may
it's
just not be able
scheduled
to.
for next year anyways, but, I just wanna make sure we're clear. And the reason we can't wait until after the dogwood decision is made is because we're planning on renting that equipment, within the next week so that we can get that done prior to the beginning of June, try to stay ahead of it a little bit.
In your mind,
Go ahead.
in your mind, do you feel like us approving this as written or not is going to weigh into the dogwood project and the decision and feasibility from a city perspective?
I nothing like putting me on this.
I'm just asking.
No, and I'm joking when I say that, I don't mind the question at all, I don't believe, depending on where we fall with the dogwood, if we are, totally reconstructing it at X dollars versus just doing some cosmetic repairs for a smaller amount, I don't see this really making that big of a difference. I mean, it is, it's certainly better to hang on to your cash, but at the same time, I prefer to do as much as you can with the equipment we rent, and then that way we can maximize it again next year. I mean, you're asking me personally, I personally probably prefer to get it done this year because it is in that same general neighborhood. It's easier for us to do, and it's something we can accomplish and not change the outcome of what happens with dogwood. But there's always that argument, to play devil's advocate, of saving the money and making sure that you keep enough in reserve to handle whatever might come up,
So the problem is the X number of dollars hasn't been determined yet, how much that X number is. X equals, who knows at this point.
Well, if we knew, it'd be an easy decision. If we don't, I'd say we need to keep the money in our pocket. I mean, it's better to have the rainy day fund than not. How bad is that street? I mean, can it make it another year? Was it scheduled to be next year, or is it completely falling apart?
You know, it could make it next year.
So,
Mr. Wilson?
I'm done. So, you're gonna be renting the equipment anyway, whether you do this street or not?
Yes.
Okay. I did not realize that.
Mrs. Poole?
Well, prior to this year's budget, I've been called several times on Magnolia Street. And those people feel that they've been promised that it would be done this year instead of next year. So, what is our plan to do on Magnolia when we get around to it? Not like Dogwood, right?
No, this is strictly just a street reconstruction.
this is asphalt.
They have a water problem the same as Dogwood has. So, how do you plan to fix their problem?
Ms. Bill, I don't want to say that they may not have issues there, but I certainly don't think you've got the amount of water traveling on Magnolia. What I'm aware of are some issues where it was fairly common, where you have homes down below the street and runoff is traveling down the driveway. We can address those as part of the road reconstruction. We don't have anything scheduled or proposed to do any ditch work or to add any true stormwater facilities. But we are aware of some of the issues over there with drainage running down those driveways, and during the reconstruction we can address that.
There's a couple that say it runs to their garages, but it's on the down part of it.
Yes, and those are the ones that I'm aware of.
We're probably talking about the same people.
And again, is this a complete reconstruction on Magnolia? Is that what you were gonna, that was what the plan was at first, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you,
This is just asphalt.
right, well, just on, not an asphalt overlay, or reconstruction?
Well, part of the same contract.
Yes, the asphalt comes in regardless whether, Boston Lane would be an example of we're just doing an overlay. All the other projects, we're recycling the existing material out there and rebuilding the street.
So as we're voting on the bill before us, we would be voting yes to do the project minus Magnolia. Is that accurate?
That's correct, just as was approved in the budget.
Okay.
Mr. Shears?
Jim, I understand what you said about trying to maximize, the number of streets that we can repair. Putting Magnolia off till next year, will that knock another project off that we could have done? Say we rent the machines for a week, and Magnolia is to be done next year. And at the end of that week is going to knock a project off that we just don't do because we don't have time without renting a machine for more days.
I don't know if it would necessarily knock a street off, I'm not sure what the schedule is for next year, but there is a maximum amount of distance, whatever you want to call it, street distance that we can get out of our rental period. So, in this particular case, we can easily fit Magnolia into that schedule without incurring any additional costs. And it's going to cost us the same amount to do these number of streets with or without Magnolia. So anything that we can add is going to really be, we'll just get more value out of our rental of the equipment. Next year, depending on what the asphalt prices would be, we could potentially do more again next year, but we never schedule more than what we can get done in I believe it's a 2-week period of time with the rental equipment. So there is that potential, but I don't know for sure if we would be losing a street.
I just hate to see a project delayed. It's gonna result in every year after that, another delay of another project we couldn't do because of Magnolia.
And it would be possible.
Well, there won't be any delays. What would happen is if you bring one from next year to this year, then you might be able to bring one from 2015 to 2014. That brings everything up a year. It doesn't delay anything if you leave it as is. If you leave it as is, then it stays as is. But to your point, if you brought it forward to this year, then you might be able to bring something from 15 up to 14. But those are all what ifs, and right now the big what if is Dogwood and cash.
Ms. Derrickson? None of this stuff really is relevant to the topic before you. The topic before you is, do you want to approve this contract? If you want to have this discussion, then that needs to be brought up under a separate agenda item, setting priorities as to what you want to do. This is not the time for that discussion with regard to prioritizing. This is just simply to approve a contract for asphalt.
With that said, and Ron's exactly right. The contract is for to enter into the agreement with Greene County for these particular services and their cost structure. What we've always done is we lay out our street maintenance program, restructuring, resurfacing program at the budget year, and that is what we always go with. So anything else added to that, which would be Magnolia, would have to come. I don't know if we can amend this or not, but we could certainly get direction on what the council would like to do. I don't know how we would do that necessarily, but we usually use this instrument.
What we've done is we had it in the explanation last meeting. We've now taken it out of the explanation, and now we're back discussing it. You have a simple motion in front of you to approve a contract. If council wants to discuss priorities and what needs to be done when, then let's put it on the agenda for May the 28th, and up or down on Magnolia. But this is not the vehicle to get you to that decision. This is a simple, do you want to approve a contract?
Call the question. I say let's vote on it. Question has been called for. Roll call vote then? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrelson?
Aye.
Councilmember Poole?
Aye.
Councilmember Casagran?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Brashears?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Flinkenbeard?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
So I can just add to make sure that we're all comfortable. We'll go in with the schedule that was in our budget and was proposed here within the exhibit. That's the instrument we use to approve those streets. At next meeting, we'll look at our scheduling for our equipment, at the next meeting rather, and then we could bring forward a resolution for the approval of Magnolia. Not to be decided tonight, but that is that potential on the 28th, so we can look at that. That's the direction.
Just so I understand, Mr. Tishke, didn't we just buy just enough asphalt just now to handle everything except Magnolia? Isn't that what we just did?
It's a per ton price, so it's not limited to.
So we can buy more at the same price?
Yeah, we can continue to buy at the same price, yes.
Thank you.
And thank you, David. On to new business. I need a motion and a second for the first read of bill number 13-21.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending Chapter 125, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Article 1, Capital Improvements Committee by adding to the article language to clarify the duties and structure of the Capital Improvements Committee.
Thank you, Brenda. Mr. Chris.
That one is mine, and Ron can jump in here too, because he actually prepared some of these changes. The Capital Improvements Committee, as everyone knows, has been operating for a long period of time, and they review, supposed to be reviewing all of the larger capital improvements that are undertaken by the city, whether they be projects or large capital purchases. The procedure would be to take this to the Capital Improvements Committee. They would review and discuss it, and then it would move on forward to the City Council for final approval. Over the years, they've been operating in a fashion that when we looked at it at their request on how we can clean this up and help clarify their duties and responsibilities, we came upon two things. First would be Chapter 125, needing to add some clarifying language to the ordinance that's in existence. This will help get us in line to what the charter actually says the committee is supposed to do. This is the first read, and then at the next meeting on the 28th, there'll be a separate resolution that will also define what the policies and procedures are about what actually is brought forward to capital improvement. So it's kind of a two-step process. One, get our ordinance in line with our charter and fully describe the work that they do and how they go about doing that and how they go about placing their officers on that committee. And then next meeting, you'll see two different, the second read of this and then the resolution for their duties and our procedures and policies.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I just, the main thing is when Jim asked me to take a look at this, the first thing that struck me was our charter says one thing and our ordinance said another, and so we needed to get our ordinance in line with the charter, and that's what triggered some of these changes to make sure that our Section 125.020 specifically is in line with what the city charter says.
Nothing changes in terms of membership. It's still the same structure as has been in the past. So this really does, as Ron said, this just cleans this up to make it match with the charter. The policies and procedure at the next meeting is probably where you'll have more questions about what will be brought forward to the committee and that sort of thing.
And by doing this, this will match with the charter, everything, and all the I's will be dotted and T's crossed. Any questions for Jim or Ron? Do you understand all that? Okay, no questions? This is the first reading. If you do have any questions, please get with Jim or Ron in the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure they can clarify everything that they need to. On to other business. Resolution number 13R-27, resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, awarding the bid for the supply and supervised installation of playground equipment for the new park located at 440 North Bailey Avenue, and authorizing the execution of a contract with Play Power Little Tykes governing said work. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
And all in favor? Or just go over
Discussion.
And Garrett for the overview, please.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As you guys remember, we've purchased the land for Hines and Bailey Park last year. This is the first phase of development for that park. We have $40,000 budgeted this year for development in that park, $30,000 to include playground equipment, and $10,000 to include a parking lot. Had a good and competitive bidding process. Bidding playground equipment is a unique and challenging process. Basically, you put out there what you would kind of like to see, and then everybody responds with what they have similar to what you would like to see. They all don't carry the same type of equipment or the same pieces or the same components. With that said, very pleased with the bidding process. We got back 5 submitted bids. All of them came in fairly competitive. We are recommending to go with the second low bidder, and the reason behind that, the second low bidder is indeed Play Power Little Tykes out of Farmington, Missouri. Those are 2 reasons behind that. They have a couple of pieces in their proposed equipment that are what I would consider to be unique and also offer far greater value than the low bidder. The two of those are rock climbing walls, and the other one is what they call a hoop la valley. Basically, it's three things you walk through and turn. Those are plastic type components, something we don't have in our other parks. And the second reason is they did install the equipment at Martin and Miller, been exceptional in the area of warranty work. We just literally just got through replacing a slide at Martin. I honestly believe it was because of vandalism. We sent them a picture. They said, we'll get it replaced. And it was about a $2,000 slide they just replaced. I mean, no questions asked. We've had 3 other instances, all in the past 2 or 3 years. Just one of them was kind of a freak deal of a natural wear and tear, replaced it, no questions asked. So I've been extremely pleased with that. If all goes as planned, I do want to say too, we're doing this with a supervised install. That saves the city approximately about $8,000. They will provide a site supervisor for 3 days, and our crews will be out there doing the majority of the work and the labor. It is pretty labor intensive. We hope to be done with this the end of June and the first part of July.
So they have a site supervisor for 3 days?
3 days, yeah.
That'd be 3 solid days or beginning and then end to do a...
We actually don't think it'll take that long, but he did kind of overbid that part, which I really appreciated. We put the Brookline equipment in. Now, granted, there's a little less equipment out in Brookline than there will be here, but we put that in a day and a half. So I appreciated the 3 days. If we need it, it's there, and that'll be nice. So.
You don't have any, and you said our crew would be capable of the assembly of this?
Oh, absolutely. Now, you do want to have that certified supervisor out there to make sure all meets all ASTM factors. We did have a CPSI on staff, which is a certified playground safety instructor. He just got through leaving us. We'll get one of our guys certified. That's a very important process for the city to check those monthly. We're hoping to get one certified fairly quickly. If not, we may have to contract it out with a gentleman from Springfield. I do want to say, and one thing I did forget, although we did budget $30,000 for this work, and this bid came in at $26,760. We will spend approximately $2,500 to $3,000 in surfacing out there, which will be your handicap compliant mulch. So all in all, we're going to be right a little less than our $30K, but still a very good process. We bid this with alternates, thinking we may not be able to afford everything we wanted. We actually got the base bid plus 2 additional alternates, so I feel like we got a lot for our money. So.
Mr. Wilson?
Little question. What is this little red thing here?
That is what they call a sit and spin. But basically, you get on there and you just spin your life away.
Can we get that out? Can we take that out? Unless you have... never mind.
It's funny, if you go by Martin at recess over there, I'm sorry, the school's playground at Martin, our equipment at Martin is incredible. If you went to buy that now at Martin, our equipment, you'd be spending about $120,000. But if you go by the school's equipment at Martin on recess, the thing that goes round and round, you'll see about 6 kids hanging on it. So, and we have, I believe, 4 things in there that go round and round. So we've got the round and round covered. So.
Everybody's going to be busy. All right. Yeah, those big buckets.
No, not the 2. That's probably bad.
Any questions for Mr. Keelan? No questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Resolution number 13-R-28, a resolution of the City of Republic, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, approving a promotional offer through HD Supply Waterworks to trade in handhelds with the purchase of Itron 100W ERT encoder receiver transmitter communication modules, Exhibit H. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second. Your view, Mrs.
I didn't understand that. Would you mind reading that?
Itron.
A lot of code
Cracker
words.
Jacks,
It's all code, isn't it?
Decoder
So,
ring.
We want the mayor back.
He'd have butchered it. Worse than me.
And put these in simple terms, what these modules are is that they sit on top of the water meter, so we have the radio read capability. And so So that's the fancy term for it. So we currently have 20% of the city that has radio read capability, so which really helps our meter readers as they go through. They don't have to be looking into the meters every time. It cuts down on, it's more efficient, you know, and as they go through monthly to read the meters. And we would like to start pursuing putting more of those modules on so we can eventually, maybe someday, I mean, at the rate we're going, it'll be a while, but eventually have more of these radio reads out there. We were approached by a vendor that they had this promotion going on that if we purchase so much or so many of these 100W ERT modules, we would receive 2 handhelds for free if we trade in our old ones. Our old ones have been in operation for 7 years, which has long past their usual life because we can't get parts for them anymore. They're not supported anymore. The software isn't. So we were needing to do something anyway, so I had put in the budget this year to replace the handhelds with a handheld reading system at a cost of $15,000. So with that, and with what I have budgeted for replacement of residential water meters of $36,000, we have plenty of money to still make the purchase of these 288 100W ERTs, get the handhelds for free, and we're actually ahead in what we can purchase for replacement of just the meters themselves. Because what I had budgeted was to replace the meters plus the ERT modules, which would allow us 200 to be replaced through our aging meter replacement program and new meters during the year. But with this, we can actually afford to do 300 of the meters because we're getting these modules at such a lower cost than what we are currently paying now from our current vendor. And so there is savings there, so we'll be able to maximize our dollars on what we have budgeted this year, and we are trying to implement an aggressive aging meter replacement program, and so that will allow us to do that too. So it does accomplish several of our goals that we wanted to see for this year. And any more I can add to all that confusion?
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Bashir.
What we may purchase here is actually a module that sits on top of the meter, or is it the meter itself?
It's a module that's attached to it.
Okay.
And so it's compatible with, we have several different models, types of meters in the ground right now, and so it's compatible with any type that we currently use.
With the 20% already in service, and if we purchase the 288, about how many does that leave if we replaced all of them?
Well,
Thousands.
yeah.
We have like 5,200 as of last year.
Yeah, it's still, if we did that, we still probably have about 4,500 approximately to replace. But, you know, whether that will, because I figured at this rate it's like 5% a year. So many years.
Mr. Clinkenbeard?
This may be a David question, but I know if we put in new meters, then they're kind of here, there, and everywhere, so it may not be as efficient. I assume when we get this large number, do we put them all in a subdivision or in a clustered area so that they can move through it quickly instead of here and there? Do we know?
Both approaches. Some of these will be for new installations, but I think she's talking about both of these, one for meter replacement, which will be existing.
And they'd be all in a similar area? 'Cause if you're the
We-
meter reader, how do you
yes.
know that, like, if my subdivision has 70 houses and 3 of them have the
They-
new meter,
They are.
how are they gonna know? I
They
mean,
are.
how efficient could that really,
Yeah.
you know, obviously you'd want them to try to put them all in
They are grouped by routes right now.
as much as possible.
Yeah, as to what is radio read and not, so.
Have we done a study to see if the efficiency, we might speed this process up for what it might save in employee time and wear and tear and all that kind of stuff?
Well, you know, Republic, the meter readers read in 10 days. right now, 6,000 meters approximately. When I worked at Kirksville, we had 7,000 meters, and it took the whole month. And so, we didn't have as many as radio reads, and our meters were located not maybe as conveniently as where they are here. But that's one of the things I was amazed at.
So we're already pretty efficient.
Yeah.
The city's done a good job over the years in their placement of water meters to make it so that when they are on their routes, that they really can flow through them pretty quickly. These will help in certain areas, as you mentioned, and as Laura mentioned, in certain areas, these things come extremely handy to have where you can really make some time. But for us to get to that point where we're replacing all, you know, we're probably 4,000 meters away from, or, you know, radio reads away from doing the entire city. But there are companies out there, and they've approached us about doing performance measures and trying to come in and convince us that we need to go and look at replacing our meters and showing how we can maximize our revenue from the reading. So it's something we've looked into. We haven't run across something that's attractive as of yet, but there are definitely companies out there that will do that for you.
If it's only taking 10 days, I guess it'd probably be hard to justify. You wouldn't make up enough days to have that much money to do 4,000. You
Well,
need a study to know that.
and when I looked into this a few years ago, when this became popular, is that it helped in those cities that the meter tech personnel, there were 20, something like that. And when they went to these radio reads, they were able to cut down personnel. But I've always kind of operated under bare bones staff anyway, so not a whole lot to, can't really cut. So.
As we put the new meters in new homes and new businesses, are they putting in the new type of meter then from the beginning, so they don't have to be replaced?
The
New
type of meter
construction.
or the communication module?
The communication module, sorry.
Depends on where it fits into the route, because now they're trying to keep all the radio reads together.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can have some groups there, like new houses or new homes coming in, then they'll start doing that together. But
They will start, or they have started?
well, in the past, they've been purchasing maybe 180 of those per year. So we're just gonna try to start pushing them more. So I don't know if the practice really has changed, it's just been a little more aggressive about.
It seems as we continue to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger, if this truly is a efficiency where we can realize a cost savings, then as we grow, have these installed from the beginning?
Yes. And they do now. You know, it just depends on where it actually fits. You know, they won't do one like in the middle of the street that has no one else has one. And so they really have to look at the placement of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. During the height of the building, they were doing just that. Now, more recently, it's been kind of 3 or 4 here, 4 or 5 over there. So that's, as Laura mentioned, that's where we try to match it with what the other homes are on that particular street. Because there's a lot of infill right now and not as much of the mass building as we had back, you know, in 06, 07, and that sort of thing. And those were a lot easier when they were putting up hundreds of homes at a time. So.
They noticed that you said that this is an upgrade, is that correct?
Yes, because right now we utilize the 60 Ws, and this one will give us more capabilities in that it keeps 40 days of log data. So if someone says they have a leak, you can actually go back and look at their consumption over that time period and see actually if there was a leak when it occurred, or was it just normal water consumption that went up and then went back down. And so.
And short of just the software or whatever it is that you're reading with, short of that not being supported anymore, what is the life cycle of one of these units?
Usually 5 years. So, because of course they want to upgrade to the next technology so everybody can replace.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Mrs. Guy Wright? No questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Resolution number 13-R-29, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, declaring an additional 6-month suspension in the consideration of and/or final approval of new or expired development proposals in certain multifamily residential districts. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
And Mr. Kriski.
All right, in this particular case, in years past when this has come forward, we've asked for a 12-month extension. In this case, we're asking for a 6-month extension. It's one of those things where we've been talking to staff, we just soon see this go away as quickly as possible. But currently, we're working on the Unified Development Code. We had the meeting, of course, as you know, with council a couple weeks back. We've got another one coming up in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks rather. We're about 90% complete on the code. We'll be bringing that forward through the process, through planning and zoning, and then the council prior to the expiration of this. The suspension hasn't really come into play at all because development in this particular market especially has almost been non-existent. With the addition of the fact that if anybody truly did want to develop anything multifamily in the city, there are other properties that are already zoned that way and they would not be subject to this suspension. So if somebody were to look to develop multifamily here in the city, if they were to have a property in place already zoned properly, they would be able to come forward and still make their development happen. So I don't see any adverse effect on the multifamily or housing industry with this. So there really is no harm from that standpoint. However, since we've been this long in the process and we're continuing to get close now to finishing up the code, we're requesting another 6 months just to make sure that we stay consistent.
And the code is, you have it to council, and
we'll have June 3rd, I believe, is the next day we have the workshop. We'll do the next big section, which would be the signage portion of the code, and then stormwater, the changes that were made in the stormwater sections of the subdivision regulations. Once we get those 2 topics done, we'll finish drafting it. Then it will go to, we'll go back out to the professionals, the engineers and architects that we called in as a focus group. We'll ask them to take another look at it. We've got a request from some of the local realtors and businesses to also take a look at it, especially on the design standards, so we'll bring it to them. That will be July and August. September is the target date for P&Z and the public hearings, and then that would bring it to council in October.
okay, so possibly getting it ratified in October.
And we have to go through the required public hearings, and more than likely we'll have an open house. Generally, people don't typically attend those meetings, but you always do it anyways. You have an open house for the residents to come and bring it forward, the comment on it when we bring it forward.
And this will add 6 months, so that takes us out to November.
Middle of November.
November on this, okay.
All right.
Any questions for Jim? Mr. Blankenbeard?
It wasn't just the Unified Development Code why we did this. We had the study from the guy that did some of the things on the real estate, and we were borderline on the concern of having a high percentage of multifamily in relation to our other housing, which hasn't changed much. I'm gonna probably lay out a motion to change that to 12 months on here like we've done in the past. In fact, I think I did that last year. And do you see any issues, or would you be, any recommendations against that if that was put forward?
No, there's been a lot of work, like you said, this Joel Zanola study is the one you're referring to that the city commissioned, and that was a big help in determining, the type of housing that we have existing in the city, the housing that was being constructed at the time, and then what all of the lots are that are approved and waiting for development. So we got a lot of value and use out of that particular study. The school has also done a demographic study that's also helped us. That just came back to us maybe a month ago. So that also has been supporting to what we've been trying to do on this. But I don't believe any delay in a suspension, whether it's 6 months to a year, Personally, I like to, I wanna see this end and be done with it and get the code all in place and be completed with that project, but I don't see any particular harm in doing it for a year.
Well, I mean, I know it's an issue with the school, and I know that if all of the current approved things were to move forward, it would put us in a lopsided position of being a little higher percentage than what people would recommend in the city. But I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna put a motion out there to amend this to a 12-month extension instead of a 6.
I have a motion.
Can we wait to second that? I actually wanted to ask a couple questions. Is it possible to table the motion?
Die for lack of a second, you make it.
If no one seconds it, it dies for lack of a second.
I'll second it.
So I have a.
Now discussion, go ahead.
So, have we talked to the, first, I'm sorry, my second question first. First question is, I don't remember addressing this in the, on Unified Development Code discussion we had the other night. I don't remember multifamily being discussed. Can you kind of fill me in on what part of the development code addresses that and where that is, what direction that's pointed?
I guess it's throughout the zoning code or Unified Development Code. I mean, the way we currently are, we have a zoning code and then a subdivision regulations, and the new way of doing things is to blend them together and come up with a Unified Development Code. The zoning, of course, is the zoning that, any property would have, and that's where this would primarily apply. So if somebody you came in for, a piece of property, you came in to rezone it to a multifamily zoning category, this particular suspension would apply, so that, you would be delayed until the city lifted the moratorium on multifamily zoning. If we have particular zoning already in place on a particular property, then you would be free to develop as long as you met all the building codes and other regulations that we would have, but this wouldn't necessarily apply towards that.
Okay, so once we get the Unified Development Code approved and the moratorium is lifted, builders can go back to building multifamily at that point as long as it fits within our code. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate, yeah. And to further that and to go on to just comment was, and I hate to try to recite any numbers, but there are hundreds of lots that are still vacant and on our books, approved, platted, ready for development that are just, waiting for somebody to come in and start developing the lots. And that includes single family as well as multifamily lots. So somebody tomorrow could walk in the right particular area and pretty much be able to submit plans and pull permits. This would be on any new proposed developments.
Something not currently zoned appropriate.
Correct.
Okay, so then, question number 2, part A and B. How do the schools feel about this? And how do we as a city feel about more multifamily? I mean, what do we want, essentially?
I think that's the biggest debate that has been out there is, and it's not just in Republic, it's pretty much in every city, is that what is the most appropriate level of multifamily that you want, a percentage of multifamily versus single family. And I can only tell you what I come to believe and know is that a healthy mix is somewhere right around 20% of your housing population should be multifamily. And that would include your duplexes, your townhouses, and your apartment complexes.
And where are we now?
If everything were to be built out, everything that is approved and zoned, I believe we were approaching the 28 to 30% level.
Okay.
We do have, Brenda, do you still have, I hate to say this, do you still have those, probably still have those numbers on that meeting that we had a year or two ago? That's got all those numbers in it. You'd have to peruse the meetings, but that information is in there.
We still have the study too.
Yeah, and I can because you had 2 parts to that, and I never did answer the second part.
The school and the city, how both?
And the school, with their demographic study, they are obviously concerned because they are showing a very strong growth pattern over the next few years. So obviously, anything that we do, they are concerned with. And the more high-density development that would occur in the city, to them means more children. So I hate to put words in their mouth, but they're going to tell us, be cautious, go slow, you know, let us grow together and not accelerate it past what they can supply the schools for. So they definitely have an interest and a concern in how we develop as well. I hate to say that they are against one or the other, but they just want us to go slow.
Well, in light of that, it seems like extending it from 6 months to a year is really moot. I mean, really, to make impact is gonna be, you know, a 10-year freeze or something like that, so 1 year is not that big a deal.
Well, I think the whole idea was that we didn't have the Unified Development Code, but we're gonna have that in place to
Right.
help us use that as a tool for development. Mr. Clinkenbeard.
Unified, going back to that again, the Unified Development Code was a small part of it. I mean, it adds some green space and some things. But our big worry is that high 20s, that 28% lopsidedness, and the fire chief may be able to get in here too, but I think the high-density multifamily dwellings bring in a higher number of calls than police and fire, put a load there. Other things on the system and city infrastructure. And in the schools, a lot of kids come in, and they also come and go during the school year. It makes it very difficult for the school to plan their grades and their growth when you have a lopsided amount. So I know people are focusing on trying to wrap it up with the Unified Development Code, but I think that's like 5% of this issue. The issue is that we have a lot of it, and it grew much faster than we should, and we should push it out for another year. And I think, you know, we should rely on another study before we allowed it, regardless of the code and how they build them.
We did have a second phase, actually 3 phases of Joe Zanola's study, and the second phase would then get a little more in depth into the housing market, and that may be something we would want to consider. But you talk to our police department, our fire department, you know, any emergency services, the level of calls, and we've got hundreds of studies to be able to support all of this, is that, you know, your level of calls, your level of service to all of those areas are much higher than you would see in a traditional single-family subdivision. With that said, you always got to have a healthy balance between the two, but we did get rather lopsided in the mid-2000s where it seemed that that was the market that was the strongest at the time, and builders, there's a lot of very good builders out there, but many times they're just going to build what is going to sell the best and what's going to make them the most profit, and they're not going to necessarily be concerned with what's in the best interest of the city going long-term. And a lot of cities got caught up in that. You know, we're not certainly too lopsided that it can't be corrected, but that was one of the ideas, and a big idea behind the moratorium in itself was just to try to give us some breathing room. The code will allow us to improve some of our building requirements. It'll improve on the open space that we talked at the last workshop. There'll be things that we can do that anytime a new development comes in, whether it's multifamily or single-family, we'll have requirements in place that will hopefully upgrade our housing stock. And that could be any level, but hopefully add some things in there that bring our level up to, you know, something that is in a price point and range and level that we just aren't currently seeing. So, but there is, and this is one of those, and I just have to say it for my own peace of mind. Originally I thought, well, this is going to be a much easier process and we'd be able to get through this code. It's been an enormous task, and as short-staffed as we are, it's one of those things where you work on it, and then as soon as you put it aside for a few days and come back, you're back to square one and starting backwards again. And we finally have taken a very strong approach to getting this done. But I think when the final result is done, it'll be a good tool for the developers and for the city. The next part after that that'll be separate from this is looking at our future land use map and make sure that it's consistent with the growth that council wants to see. Everybody said.
Okay, there is a motion to amend in a second on the floor to extend it to a year. That needs to be voted on.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for a 12-month extension. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? We'll do this again? Let's do this again.
You may have to vote on this.
Yes, I have a motion and a second for an extension, a 12-month extension on the resolution. All in favor, with a show of hands, please.
Aye.
4. All opposed? 5. Did I count me?
Yes, 5 is here.
All opposed? 1,
2.
2.
Number 2.
And any abstentions? Motion carries 5-2.
Okay, so now you're in a position of the resolution has been amended from 6 months to 12 months. That is still on the floor, open for discussion.
Any discussion on this motion at this point? Or any other questions, or? Yes, Mr. Wilson.
Just as an aside, about a couple of blocks south of Ford, they're starting to move dirt where those apartments are. I don't know if they're getting ready to build another apartment or what.
Isn't that the business corporate?
That's the business.
Little
On the
corporate
east side of-
village.
On the east side of the road? Okay.
That will be the new location for, an insurance, local insurance agent. I don't wanna say who, because I'm not sure he's announced it yet, but, and then also for a realtor as well.
Okay, very good. I did not know what they were moving it for.
Oh, I do have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you foresee any pushback on extending this? I mean, I know there's not a lot of development going on, but if we keep extending it, could we run into a problem?
And maybe something for Ron to answer, but yes, I would think
We
it
could have been challenged from the
Yeah.
get-go,
I know
but
we haven't been, 'cause
the market just didn't support that kind of development. We do have the Zanola study, so I think we've got a good underpinning to defend against anything like that, but as I always say, once you get in court on something, you don't know what might happen.
but probably another year is not gonna change things.
No, and we've been working with the Home Builders Association, so they are well aware of what we're doing. So it's not like we haven't reached out to everyone and let them provide us with their input and their thoughts, but we've let them know as well what's going on. So, yes, somebody could challenge it, but, as Ron said, even if they did, it would take a long time and we would be long past the extension before anything would happen.
Well, there's plenty of pre-approved if someone wants to come and build one right
I just
now.
wanna make sure that we're,
And there is, you know, there is some interest in some of the existing zoning that's out there already, but there has been for a while, they just, have not moved forward yet.
Any other questions? Comments or concerns? All in favor of the amended resolution?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-2. That does end our regular session. We do have executive session slated. I do want to make a comment, though, that after executive session, there's no further action other than announcing the adjournment by Mayor Pro Tem. So, I need a motion and a second to enter into executive session under RSMO 610.021.1.
Motion?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrelson?
Aye.
Councilmember Poole?
Aye.
Councilmember Costabring?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Brashear?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Clinkenbeard?
Aye.